The incessant rain continued to pour, covering a small, secluded village in the mountains. Every time the winter wind blew through, the entire village seemed enveloped in a thick fog. Everything appeared shrouded in a misty haze, and the surrounding scenery was no longer as clear as usual. Emily, a 10-year-old girl, was the only child in the village who loved to venture into the deep forests. She often played with her friends in the woods along the stream near her house. That day, Emily was playing hide-and-seek with her friends in the forest near the village. By then, the day was getting darker, and Emily's friends had finished their round of the game. But when they were preparing to head back, they realized that Emily had not returned. Worried, her friends began searching for her in the forest, calling her name endlessly. But all they heard was the sound of the wind rustling through the trees, the branches swaying in the breeze, creating strange noises. The feeling of worry began to grow in their hearts. After searching for a while, Emily's friends decided to rush back home to inform the adults. People from the village began to worry and joined in the search. The entire village was soon bustling, but as nightfall approached, they still couldn't find any trace of Emily. It seemed as if the forest had swallowed her whole, leaving no sign behind. Margaret, Emily's mother, was confused and terrified. Even though she had been calling her daughter's name for hours, there was no response. As the night grew later, the silence in the forest became heavier. No one in the village could sleep, staying awake all night in worry. A strange feeling seemed to hang in the air, as if something unusual was waiting. Sarah, Emily's best friend, recalled the last time she saw Emily laughing and playing before she disappeared. Maybe she just wandered off a bit and will come back. Sarah tried to reassure herself, but an odd sense of unease still lingered on. After a long, sleepless night, the search party was formed early the next morning. Villagers, along with the police, began making plans and splitting into teams to search the vast forest. Everyone was equipped with flashlights, binoculars, and other necessary tools to search every corner of the forest. The entire village gathered at the forest's edge as cold winds blew, carrying the smell of wet earth and trees. No one spoke. Only the sound of footsteps and the rustling of leaves underfoot. The search party began to move deeper into the forest, each step pulling them further into the darkness of the trees. Tall pine trees formed a canopy, blocking out the sunlight. As they moved through the desolate areas, they only heard the rustling of the wind and the sound of each other's footsteps. But the deeper they went, strange noises began to emerge, like the screeching of trees rubbing against each other or unexplained sounds from places out of sight. This strange feeling made everyone in the group uneasy. A strange noise echoed from afar, as if someone was walking in the darkness. The group stopped, standing still to listen. The space around them seemed to freeze, with only the sound of the wind rustling through the branches. Sarah, one of the group members, looked up at the towering branches and suddenly felt as though someone was staring at her from the shadows. "Maybe we should stop and rest for a while," Sarah spoke, but no one responded. The air in the forest grew heavier, and everyone felt as if something was lurking in the darkness. Sarah raised her hand to shield her eyes as the faint rays of the sun pierced through the thick canopy. The group continued moving, and as they passed a clearing, a few faint traces were found on the ground. These were small footprints, clearly not from an adult, but from a child. The group immediately stopped, exchanging worried glances. One of the group members, Tom, bent down and inspected them closely. "These tracks are only a few hours old. They might be Emily's," he said. But in the eyes of everyone, there was doubt. The search party continued to follow Emily's tracks, moving deeper into the forest where the sunlight was reduced to faint streaks filtering through the thick canopy. The towering trees formed walls blocking out the light, making the air even colder and darker. Sarah began to feel something was wrong, a strange, inexplicable sensation. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind blew through, carrying strange whispers from somewhere. The whispers were tiny but powerful, as if speaking to them from another world. "Do you hear that?" Sarah whispered, looking back at the other members of the group. They exchanged worried glances, but said nothing. The whispers seemed to grow clearer with each passing moment. "Sarah, we can't go on." A small voice came from behind. It was Tom. The feeling of being pursued grew stronger, and everyone seemed to sense the presence of something unseen. "We need to keep going," Sarah replied, trying to stay calm. The sense of suffocation among the group continued to rise. They pushed through thick thickets, but there was no sign of Emily. All traces seemed to vanish as they ventured deeper into the forest. People began to feel exhausted and confused. Suddenly, a high-pitched sound broke the silence, like a blood-curdling scream. The whole group froze, their tension peaking. "Was that Emily's scream?" one of the members, John, asked. They all heard the scream, but could not determine its source. An invisible sense of fear enveloped them. Sarah felt her heart racing. She turned back to look at the group, but everything was still, only the sound of the wind howling in the air. "We have to follow the sound," Sarah decided. Although everyone felt afraid, they knew they couldn't stop. The group continued to move toward the noise, where large trees blocked the path. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind blew through, shaking the branches, and shadowy figures appeared again, fleeting past them quickly. "Don't focus on them," Sarah said. But everyone's eyes couldn't stop watching the figures as they glided by. After hearing the strange scream, the search party continued to follow the faint traces through the forest, hoping to find some sign of Emily. The fear was still overwhelming, but they couldn't stop. As they passed a small clearing, a strange sight appeared before them. A narrow trail led deeper into the forest, one that was not on any map, and it seemed completely unfamiliar. The trail appeared abandoned, with wild grasses growing over it, obscuring the path. However, everyone in the group felt an unusual energy emanating from this path. Sarah felt her heart race as she stared at the narrow path. It was as though something was calling them to follow. "Let's go down this path," Sarah said, but no one in the group could object. The urge was too strong. They moved into the trail, their footsteps light on the damp grass. The path became narrower with each step, and the air around them grew colder. Suddenly, a shadowy figure appeared ahead, fleeting past and disappearing into the woods. One of the group members, Mark, panicked. "We shouldn't continue," he said, but Sarah decided to move forward. The sound of their footsteps echoed in the silent space of the forest. Each step made them feel as though they were being pulled into another world, an environment they couldn't control. A strange sound came from ahead, resembling the cry of a child, soft but full of fear. Sarah whispered, but there was no answer. A sense of anxiety and confusion began to fill the group. Suddenly, a faint light flickered ahead, like a fragile ray of hope. The group moved toward the light, and as they got closer, they discovered an abandoned, small house. The windows of the house were dark, showing no signs of life. The walls were rotting, and the roof had collapsed. But it seemed like this was where Emily had been. The group stopped. Standing before the old house, the flashlight's beam illuminating the damp walls. A strange feeling enveloped them again, and Sarah felt as though an invisible force was stopping them from entering. "Should we go inside?" Tom asked, but no one responded. The search party stopped before the ancient wooden door of the abandoned house. The door, although decayed and worn with time, seemed to hold an odd, preserved integrity. No one in the group dared open the door right away. A strange sensation swept over them, as if an invisible force was preventing them from entering. Sarah raised her hand and grasped the door handle. As she opened it, a gust of cold air rushed out, causing everyone in the group to jump. The door slowly creaked open, revealing a dark, eerie space inside. Inside the house, the cold air made the group feel like they had entered another world. Thick shadows enveloped the room, making everything seem blurry and dark. The musty smell of mold and decaying wood filled the air. As the group moved inside, the light from their flashlights barely illuminated a small portion of the room. The walls, peeling with paint, and old objects scattered across the floor gave the place a feeling of abandonment. Sarah noticed an old mirror, covered in a thick layer of dust, reflecting the faint light. The strange feeling of the place being wrong made her uneasy. Suddenly, a sound came from behind, like something had fallen to the ground. The whole group turned around, their eyes filled with concern. But when they looked around, nothing seemed unusual except for the tables, chairs, and discarded items. "Is anyone here?" Sarah called out. There was no answer. The group's breathing mixed with the sound of the wind outside, creating a chilling atmosphere. Sarah moved towards the old mirror and gently wiped away the dust. When she looked into the mirror, the reflection was not hers. Instead, it showed a ghostly face of a little girl with deep, hollow eyes staring directly at her. Sarah stumbled backward, horrified as she realized that the image in the mirror wasn't just a figment of her imagination. It looked real, alive. The group stood frozen, staring at the mirror, unsure of what to do. Suddenly, a noise came from behind. Another door in the house opened by itself, revealing a dark hallway beyond. The flashlight's beam only illuminated a small portion of the hallway, making the surrounding space even more terrifying. Sarah felt a subtle pull from the hallway, as though something was waiting for them. As the group entered the dark hallway, the space around them seemed endless. The damp stone walls, covered with moss and dust, made them feel as if they were lost in a maze. Each step echoed in the eerie silence, as if their footsteps were unable to leave this place. Sarah felt as though she was being pulled into another dimension, a dimension with no escape. The shadows, the restless spirits, were still lingering around them. The sensation of being watched grew stronger with every moment. As they ventured deeper into the maze, they realized that every corner seemed to lead to another dimension. Closed doors, endless dark hallways, as if they were lost in a world outside of reality. Suddenly, the light from Sarah's flashlight illuminated a large wall, covered with strange markings. The markings seemed like ancient curses, signs of the lost souls. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine, but she continued moving forward. The strange, intense feeling built up with every step the group took. A shadowy figure appeared ahead, only to disappear as they got closer. Sarah and the others exchanged glances, not daring to speak. Suddenly, a faint, eerie laugh echoed through the silent space, like the sound of a child. "Emily," Sarah shouted, her voice trembling, but the laugh lasted only a moment before stopping. No one answered. The entire group felt as if they were surrounded, trapped in an endless maze. From behind them, a soft but clear voice echoed, "Sarah, your child is here." The voice didn't come from anyone in the group, but from an invisible entity, cold and distant. Sarah turned around, but saw no one. The group continued moving deeper into the maze, where the shadows and restless spirits constantly surrounded them. Suddenly, a large door at the end of the hallway opened. A faint light seeped through the crack in the door. Sarah couldn't resist. She stepped toward the door, despite part of her feeling terrified and anxious. As Sarah and the group approached the door, a gust of cold wind blew through, making the door swing open wide. Inside was a large room, empty except for an old chair and bare walls. The light from the group's flashlight illuminated a wall across the room, where there was a strange image. Hand-drawn pictures of children were scattered across the wall, depicting bizarre and haunting images with glowing eyes. The children in the drawings stared directly at the group, as if they were watching their every move. The group stood still, no one daring to move forward. The strange drawings didn't just seem like lifeless images. They appeared to carry a warning. "We need to get out of here," Mark whispered. But Sarah couldn't tear her eyes away from the wall. One drawing, in particular, caught her attention. It was an image of a little girl, a face that looked eerily like Emily's, standing alone in a dark forest. The girl's eyes in the drawing were filled with terror, and the flashlight's beam seemed to make them come alive. Sarah's heart sank as she recognized the eerie connection between the drawing and Emily. She turned to look at the group, but no one spoke. The air in the room grew heavy, as though this space was holding a secret they could not comprehend. Suddenly, a faint, eerie laugh echoed from behind. When they turned around, there was nothing but silence. But when the light from their flashlight shone on the opposite wall, a hidden door slowly opened, revealing a narrow hallway leading down into the ground. Despite her fear, Sarah couldn't resist the overwhelming urge to enter the hallway. "We have to continue," she said, her voice tinged with uncertainty. The search party stepped into the hallway, their footsteps echoing in the dark space, as if they were walking into another realm, a world they couldn't escape. The hallway led them down into a dark basement, where shadowy figures began to appear. A cold voice echoed from afar. "You've come to the right place." As they entered the basement, the air grew heavier than ever before. Shadowy figures floated in the dark, as if they were not spirits of the dead, but beings trapped between the real world and another realm. The group's footsteps echoed louder and louder in the silence. Suddenly, the light from their flashlights illuminated a large wall at the far end of the room. There, strange ancient symbols were carved into the stone, looking like an unreadable script. These symbols glowed oddly when the light hit them. Sarah approached the wall and placed her hand on the strange symbols. The chilling sensation from the wall spread through her body, making her feel as though an invisible force was seeping into her. Emily and the other children, the shadowy figures, stood near the wall, staring at her. "This is the curse," Sarah whispered. Her words made the entire group freeze. Mark, his face filled with worry, asked, "Who created these symbols? What do they have to do with the missing children?" Sarah didn't know how to answer. She only knew that these symbols could be the key to unraveling this mystery. Suddenly, a voice echoed from the darkness, but it wasn't a human voice. "These children cannot escape here," the voice whispered, cold and emotionless. The group turned around, but there was no one behind them, only the thick darkness and the shadowy figures moving past. "They're hiding in the shadows," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "These children are still alive, but not in the way we understand." The group stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. Sarah took a step back, her eyes fixed on the wall. A terrible truth began to form in her mind. These symbols were the traces of souls trapped in the forest. They hadn't died, but they hadn't lived either. The sensation of being lost in an eternal nightmare made it hard for Sarah to breathe. The children, including Emily, had become part of this world. Not ordinary spirits, but beings that could not escape. "We have to find a way to get them out," Sarah said determinedly, and the search party moved forward. An eerie silence enveloped the group as they moved deeper into the dark basement. Strange noises echoed from behind, as if invisible objects were moving in the shadows. With each step, it became harder to walk, as the darkness thickened. Impossible to penetrate. A faint sound came from a dark corner of the basement, as if someone was whispering, but no one could hear it clearly. Sarah felt herself being drawn into an endless nightmare. The feeling of despair was overwhelming the group. As the flashlight beam illuminated an old table, they saw old photographs of children, all with hollow and eerie expressions. The photos were not just mementos, but pieces of a horrifying past. One photo in particular made Sarah stop, a picture of Emily, but with a strange expression on her face. In the photo, Emily was not smiling as she usually did. Instead, her eyes were hollow, lifeless. This made Sarah even more confused and fearful. Sarah felt her heart tighten as she realized what this photograph was trying to warn her about. The children in the forest were not spirits of the dead. They were beings trapped in an endless loop of time. These souls were imprisoned in the forest by an ancient curse. Each child became a part of that circle, unable to escape. The sense of despair grew in Sarah's heart as she realized that Emily and the other children would remain trapped here forever, unable to leave. As the search party stood in shock at the truth, a loud noise echoed from afar. They turned around and saw a large shadow moving toward them. The group froze, unable to move, as if an invisible force was holding them in place. The shadow moved closer, and as it got nearer, they realized it was a gigantic creature, a dark monster born from the fears of the lost children. Its presence made everything around them seem even darker and colder than ever before. The dark monster moved closer, and with each step, the surrounding space grew colder and darker. Sarah and the search party found themselves unable to move, as if an invisible force was holding them in place. This shadow wasn't an ordinary creature. It was a being born from the fears and abandoned souls of the missing children. It was massive and terrifying, but also filled with pain, as if it were a manifestation of eternal despair. In that moment, Sarah realized that the creature was not the enemy they needed to fight. It was a reflection of all the children trapped in this forest, including Emily. The presence of the monster was the result of a curse that had existed for centuries, consuming the souls of the children and transforming them into these entities. Sarah understood that. To free Emily and the other children, they couldn't defeat the monster with force. They had to decipher the curse and release the trapped souls. Sarah turned back to look at the wall with the strange symbols and realized that it wasn't just a part of the story. It was a way to unlock the secret of the forest. These symbols were the curse that had bound the souls to the deep woods. If they could decipher the symbols correctly, they would be able to release the spirits and break the cycle. But to do so, they had to confront their deepest fears. Each member of the group had to face their own fear and learn how to overcome it. With the strength in her heart, Sarah began to decipher the strange symbols on the wall, realizing that it was an ancient message about liberation. Emily, along with the other souls, had been waiting for one final action to break the curse. A powerful light erupted from the wall as the symbols were decoded, and immediately, the shadowy figures around them began to fade. The giant monster shrank, growing smaller and weaker, before vanishing into the air. The curse was finally broken, and the children were set free. On a late summer afternoon in 2015, a 19-year-old girl named Mia, living in the outskirts of a small town, mysteriously disappeared while returning home from school. Mia was a smart, active college student with an ordinary family life. Yet no one could understand why she vanished without a trace. The search efforts lasted for 3 months, involving the police, search dogs, and volunteers. However, all efforts returned empty-handed. The biggest question was why Mia disappeared without leaving any trace. No clues whatsoever. Mia's family, especially her mother, Linda, never gave up hope, even though the police had nearly halted any official search efforts. Linda continued her quest to find her daughter. She hired private investigators and reached out to independent search organizations. Some claimed to have seen Mia in various locations, but all those leads turned out to be false. Every day, Linda faced the despair of not finding any information about her daughter. But one day, a piece of information from an unclear source made Linda believe that Mia might still be alive. A tip from a stranger suggested that Mia might have been kidnapped and held somewhere. The person claimed to have heard strange noises in a nearby forest area where the police had previously searched for months with no results. The search group decided to return to this forest. This time, not with a faint hope, but with the belief that they would find some clue about Mia. However, as they ventured deeper into the forest, what they discovered was not what they had hoped for. As the search group moved into the area pointed out by the stranger, they found an old house, not on any map. The house was covered by trees and overgrowth, seemingly abandoned for years. The light from their flashlights illuminated the fogged windows, making the interior even more eerie. When they opened the door, a cold, heavy atmosphere flooded in. Everyone in the group felt something was wrong, but they continued inside, believing this might be where Mia was held. The door of the old house creaked open with a loud sound, creating an atmosphere full of tension and fear. The group hesitated for a moment before entering, the faint light from their flashlights illuminating the dark corners of the house. Dust-covered chairs and rotten wooden planks floated on the floor, and the air felt suffocating, making it hard for anyone to breathe. A large painting on the wall caught Sarah's attention. The painting depicted a girl with hollow eyes and a fearful expression, resembling Mia's description. Could this be a clue? A sign that the search party had been looking for? Sarah moved closer to the painting, feeling a chill as she looked more closely. She noticed that the painting wasn't just a simple drawing. There was something strange hidden inside. The girl's eyes in the painting seemed to move, following their every movement. The eerie feeling made Sarah unable to look away from the painting. The rest of the group also felt the oddity as they stared at the painting, and a long silence hung in the air. A small noise from behind made the group turn around. There was no one standing behind them, just a dark room filled with old tables and scattered furniture. But when one of the members stepped into the room, he discovered an old notebook left on the table. The notebook contained strange notes, not from Mia, but very much like the notes of someone who was watching. The notes mentioned an escape, and the children will never return. These words stunned everyone in the group, leaving them even more confused and fearful. The notes in the notebook mentioned a secret refuge where Mia might have been held. The vague references to a strange curse made the search group even more confused. One of the last notes was an address, but this address didn't appear on any maps. "We have to follow this lead," Sarah said, though she knew that things were becoming stranger and more dangerous. The feeling that they were walking into an inescapable place was becoming more and more apparent. Following the clues in the notebook, the search party decided to visit the strange address that wasn't on any map. The address led them to a remote suburb, an area seldom visited by people. The road to this place was a narrow dirt track, surrounded by abandoned houses and desolate fields. An eerie and tense atmosphere enveloped the area. As the group entered, an unnatural silence made them uneasy. There were no bird calls, no wind, only the sound of their footsteps echoing in the stillness. After walking for a while, the search group came across an old house, abandoned for years, with shattered windows and the main door tightly locked. Looking through the window gaps, they saw a dark interior filled with scattered old furniture. Sarah sensed something was wrong and decided not to enter through the front. Instead, they tried to find a way in through the back. As they walked around the house, they discovered a rusty iron door that was locked, but when they tried to push it, it unexpectedly opened. They all stopped for a moment, unsure of what to do. "Should we go in?" Mark asked, but no one responded. They all felt an undefined danger waiting ahead. Entering the house, a cold draft hit them, and they quickly realized it had been abandoned for so long. But there were signs of a strange presence. Dust-covered cloths on chairs, old books scattered on the floor. Suddenly, the light from their flashlight illuminated an old mirror placed on a table, reflecting the image of the search group. However, what was strange was that the reflection didn't match reality. A shadowy figure, resembling Mia, appeared in the mirror, standing among the group. The group froze, and when they turned around, no one was there. The flashlight's light flickered, as if an invisible force was influencing them. The group stood still, unable to believe what they had just seen. But there was no time to think further, as a loud noise came from behind the house, as if someone was walking around. They turned around, but saw no one. The flashlight beam shone on an old chest, tightly locked. Sarah decided to open the chest, but as she grabbed the handle, an odd, cold sensation made her pull her hand back. "We have to keep checking every corner of this house," Sarah said. The strange feeling and growing anxiety filled everyone. They continued their search, unaware of what awaited them in the dark house. After a strange sound came from the old chest, the search group decided to open it. Despite the rising unease, Sarah, her hands trembling, grabbed the handle and pulled hard. The chest lid creaked open, revealing a dark space inside. As the flashlight beam illuminated it, they discovered a strange object, a small silver necklace with a red jewel inside. The necklace looked identical to the one Mia had been wearing before her disappearance. The sense of fear grew even stronger. Sarah stared at the necklace, her mind swirling with thoughts. How did this necklace end up here? Could it be the last trace of Mia? Or perhaps part of a larger mystery they hadn't yet unraveled? "This is Mia's," Sarah whispered. The group stood silently, each of them feeling the weight of the atmosphere. Everyone seemed lost in their own thoughts, trying to comprehend what they were facing. "We need to learn more about this necklace," Mark spoke up. The search group decided to take the necklace outside and continue exploring the house. As they moved through each room, they couldn't shake the feeling of being watched by an invisible force. Shadowy figures appeared on the walls, seemingly reflections of their flashlights. But they made the group uneasy. Suddenly, Sarah turned around and noticed a small door in the corner of the room that they had overlooked earlier. The door didn't have a key, but when Sarah tried to gently push it, it opened easily. The door opened to reveal a winding staircase leading down into the earth. The strange and dangerous feeling intensified as the group began descending the stairs. They didn't know what awaited them below, but the strong compulsion kept them from turning back. When they reached the bottom, a vast space opened up with walls covered in lime and moss, and a faint light filtered through cracks in the walls. A large painting hung on the wall, depicting a bizarre scene. A girl standing in a forest, red sunlight from the setting sun shining on her. But her eyes were pitch black, empty. It resembled the painting they had seen in the old house. As the light from their flashlights illuminated the eerie painting of the girl in the forest. The entire group felt an overwhelming chill. The empty eyes of the girl in the painting seemed to be staring directly at them, making it impossible for them to move, as though they were forbidden to advance. Sarah, the first to regain her composure, stepped closer to the painting. She felt a cold breeze run down her spine, as if someone was standing behind her. This feeling intensified with every passing second. "This can't be a coincidence," Sarah whispered, her eyes fixed on the painting. As Sarah got closer, she noticed that the painting wasn't just a work of art, but something truly alive, hidden within it. A strange light began to shine from the necklace she had found in the chest. The necklace, identical to the one Mia had worn, seemed to glow with an energy that the group couldn't explain. Fear and curiosity overwhelmed Sarah's mind. "Something's happening here," she said, her voice filled with worry. A sudden gust of wind blew through, extinguishing the flashlight's beams, causing the group to stop in complete darkness. The space around them became eerily silent and suffocating, making them feel as if they were trapped in another world. Suddenly, a small door behind the painting opened, revealing a dark tunnel. The flashlight's light couldn't reach the end of it. "We have to go in," Sarah said, unable to resist the pull of the tunnel. The search group stepped into the tunnel, unaware of where they were heading. A cold, suffocating atmosphere enveloped the space, and the silence only heightened their fear. Walking in the dark, they could only hear the sound of their footsteps echoing. After a while, they noticed a faint light glowing from the end of the tunnel. Anxiety rose within them. They knew something was about to happen, but none of them could have predicted the horror that awaited them, an unimaginable truth. The search group entered the tunnel, with their flashlight's light barely illuminating a small portion of the vast, dark space. The smell of mold and cold smoke emanated from the damp walls, making everyone feel suffocated. The sound of their footsteps echoed in the eerie silence. Without a single sound, no one dared speak, as they all felt an invisible threat lurking around them. The deeper they went, the dimmer the light became until they were left in complete darkness. Suddenly, a faint light appeared ahead, accompanied by a gust of cold air emanating from it. The group tried to move toward the light, although they couldn't sense any sign of an escape. As they approached the light, they realized it was a door, but not an ordinary door. It was a stone door, covered in moss and dust. The door was engraved with ancient symbols, exactly the same as the ones they had seen in the old house. "We have to go in," Sarah said, although she still couldn't fully comprehend what was happening. Sarah moved closer to the stone door, her hands trembling as she placed them on the strange symbols. The coldness from the stone door spread through her body. The others in the group stood around, their eyes filled with confusion and fear. As Sarah turned the door handle, the door slowly creaked open, revealing a dark space inside, where faint light emanated from strange stones scattered on the floor. As they entered, an eerie sensation made them feel as though someone was watching them, standing silently in the shadows. The group stepped into the dark space, and as the flashlight light hit the stones, they realized that these stones had a strange ability. They emitted light, like an invisible source of energy. The space around them began to shift, as if everything was moving in the darkness. Suddenly, a cold voice echoed, not from anyone in the group, but from somewhere in the space. "You cannot escape from here." The group froze, unsure of what to do next. The feeling of fear grew as the group moved deeper into the dark space. The faint light from the stones on the ground created a strange, eerie atmosphere. The group tried to keep their calm, but the tension in the air made each step they took slower. Sarah noticed a light in the distance, emanating from a stone archway ahead. This light made her feel as if there was an escape, a glimmer of hope in the darkness. As the group moved closer to the light, they felt as though everything around them was changing. Every sound in the space fell completely silent, leaving only the echo of their footsteps in the air. The closer they got to the stone archway, the brighter the light became, and they realized that the light didn't come from any visible source, but from the very walls of this place. The stone walls began to glow, making the entire space come alive in an eerie way. Sarah stepped forward toward the stone archway, feeling as though the entire world was shifting with every step she took. The group paused briefly as they neared the archway, and when the light became blinding, they realized that the archway wasn't just a natural formation. It held something supernatural within it. A strange sensation rose within Sarah as she touched the surface of the archway. A powerful surge of energy passed through her body, making every nerve in her body tense. Suddenly, a large stone door appeared right in front of them, with no warning that it would appear. This stone door was covered with strange symbols and surrounded by massive stone columns. The search group exchanged worried and uneasy glances. Sarah stepped closer, her hand once again resting on the strange symbols. A strange sound echoed, almost like a whisper from somewhere in the space, clearly saying, "Only those who dare face their fears may pass." The group stood frozen, none of them daring to move forward. After standing in silence before the stone door, Sarah and the search group began to feel a strange shift in the air. It seemed as if an invisible force was controlling everything around them. The symbols on the door started to glow faintly, and a voice echoed through the space. "Only those who dare face their true selves may pass through this door." The group exchanged glances, none of them daring to step forward. Sarah felt her heart race, as though something was pulling her toward the door. Sarah moved closer to the door, her hand resting once again on the strange symbols. A cold chill ran through her body, but there was also an immense force, as if ready to pull her into another world. With each step she took, she felt like she was being sucked into a storm she couldn't escape. Suddenly, the door opened automatically, its hinges creaking loudly, and a light from within shone outward. This light wasn't ordinary. It was a ghostly, ethereal glow, like a halo of mist. The ghostly light guided the group into a strange, vast space that was completely silent. There was nothing around them but cold stone walls and shadowy figures floating in the air. It felt as if they were stepping into a realm beyond the real world, where time had no meaning. As they ventured further in, a strange sound echoed from the front, as if someone was waiting for them. Sarah called out loudly, but all she received was the echo of her own voice. Sarah continued to call Mia's name, but no one responded. However, as she approached a deeper area of the space, a shadowy figure slowly began to materialize in front of her. It was a girl with long hair. her face blurry, but resembling Mia. "Mia," Sarah said, her voice choking. The figure said nothing, simply standing there, staring at her with empty eyes. The feeling of fear surged within Sarah as she realized that this was not the real Mia, but merely a shadow of her, trapped between worlds. The group stood frozen, staring at the shadowy figure before them. Sarah felt as if time had stopped. The figure of the girl, resembling Mia, stood there with hollow eyes, lifeless, just a shadow, unable to move. A chill ran through Sarah's hand, making it impossible for her to tear her gaze away from the figure. "Mia, is that you?" Sarah called out. Her voice choked, but the figure didn't respond, standing still like a part of the darkness. Sarah moved closer, and as she touched the figure, a strange sensation flooded through her body. The entire space around them seemed to change. The shadows began to undulate and swirl around the group. The figure slowly faded away, and instead, a voice echoed from somewhere in the space. "They will never return." These words made the group tremble. "What does this mean?" Mark asked, his eyes filled with fear. "We have to find a way to save Mia and all the other children." A loud noise from afar made the group turn around. In the dim space, they saw a new passage open up, leading into a large room. Bright red light emitted from strange stones, creating an atmosphere that felt like another world. The feeling of fear was indescribable, and the group hesitated before stepping inside. But an invisible force made them feel compelled to continue. Sarah was the first to step into the room, and as soon as she crossed the threshold, the group noticed something odd. The paintings on the walls began to change, as if they were alive. As the group stepped into the room, the paintings on the walls began to reveal images of Mia and the other children. But not ordinary paintings. These paintings kept changing. The eyes of the children in the paintings staring directly at the search group, as if they were begging for help. A bizarre scene appeared. Mia stood among the other children, her eyes wide open, her mouth moving as if speaking, but no sound could be heard. Sarah felt her heart shatter as she realized that all these children were trapped in an endless loop. Everything seemed to fall silent as Sarah and the search group realized they were facing a more terrifying truth than anything they had ever imagined. The paintings on the walls were not just images of missing children. They were the souls of these children, trapped in a space beyond the real world. Sarah stood still, feeling the pain of these trapped souls piercing through her mind. "We can't leave without doing something," Sarah said, her voice filled with determination. "We have to help them escape." The group began searching for a way to release these souls, but as they approached the paintings, they felt a powerful resistance from an invisible force. A wave of energy seemed to push them back, preventing them from advancing. Once again, the strange voice echoed in the space. "To free them, you must face your own fears." Sarah realized that in order to release these souls, each member of the group had to confront their own fear. Sarah turned to look at the members of the group, seeing their eyes filled with fear, but none of them stepped back. Each member of the group had their own fear: the fear of loss, the fear of failure, the fear of confronting painful truths. But they all knew that only by overcoming these fears Would they be able to help the suffering souls? One by one, they moved closer to the paintings, hearts full of resolve. As they touched the painting, a brilliant light erupted, and the space around them suddenly shifted. The light grew brighter, and the painting slowly dissolved into the air. A strange sense of peace spread through the space. The souls, including Mia, were gradually released, and the light around them softened, as if they were entering a peaceful realm. The group stood still, silent, feeling the serenity in the air. Mia, now free, looked at Sarah with a grateful expression. "Thank you," Mia whispered before disappearing completely, leaving a warm feeling in Sarah's heart.